You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to the middle of the week. Oh yeah, it is. You know what that means? We got to talk to the camel. Play it.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Mike. What day is it, Mike? Leslie, guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Whoop, whoop. Yes, it is. Welcome to Hump Day. Middle of the week. We're going to get you all the way to go home time on a Friday afternoon. But right now, you are there, y'all. It is halfway to the weekend, and we're glad you're with us. And oh, by the way, pushing buttons so ably on the board, that would be the JP. Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm doing good. And by the way, I feel like
they
need to bring that commercial back.
They do.
Well, I don't know if you've seen during the March Madness, they brought back the wee pig, the pig that says wee all the way home, and then been playing it nonstop.
Which used to crack me up.
And they brought it back after it being gone for like 10 years or so. I feel like they need to bring that one back.
The other one they need to bring back is, and they won't because it offends certain segments of society, is the guy who's talking on the phone in the middle of the night. His wife goes, "Who are you talking to?"
Jake.
Yeah. And he goes, "Oh, Jake." Well, she sounds horrible. Well, she's a guy, so that commercial.
Can't say that now.
I know. That commercial used to crack me up. Then they had to redo Jake and make a new thing out of him, and it was awful. All right. They're the best things, man. That's the best things. Hey, we got a great show laid on for you. Coming up at the end of the first hour, right at the top of the second hour, Brian Taylor, former state senator. We served together in Montgomery. He also ran for the state Supreme Court. But Brian Taylor is a practicing attorney, a former Army officer, and he's in a very interesting case involving election matters at the local level. So we're going to talk to him about that because you may want to hear what a judge just did right here in Alabama. So Brian Taylor, beginning of the second hour, halfway through hour number 2, we will have Secretary of State Wes Allen calling in. Alabama Secretary of State Wes Allen has been, in my opinion, a national leader in pursuing election integrity. He's done some great stuff, but it also ties directly into a executive order that Trump issued last night. So perfect timing on this. At the bottom of the second hour, Secretary of State Wes Allen. And then top of hour number 3, you know the deal. It's Wednesday. We will have the Grand Council with my brethren Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson calling in, pinging each other with questions and just seeing where our punditry opinions fall. So that's beginning of hour number 3, Grand Council with Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. And there's still a triple dipper, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. Number 1, out the gate, election matters. Well, elections matter, but I'm going to talk about election matters. So there are some things happening in the world of election integrity that I want y'all to be tracking and make sure you're aware of. And also, oh, by the way, never forget what they did to us in 2020, and we're not going to let it happen again. So election matters, number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, tariff time. Did you know that we are looking at upwards of $3 trillion in outside investment into the United States by industry moving here, in part because of the Trump tariffs? Ah, you mean tariffs create jobs? Potentially. We'll talk about it. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper, tariff time. And then number 3, know the numbers. What am I talking about? Well, there's some new polls out. There's some new information out, all of which adds up to things that I think you guys might want to be aware of. And so I'm just saying, know the numbers. When you're having that water cooler conversation with somebody and they say, well, what do you think about this? You can just amaze them by saying, well, you know, the latest Quinnipiac poll says. I'll tell you all about it. Number 3, Triple Dipper, know the numbers. All right, let me jump on into today's Right Side Way opening monologue, and I'll remind you guys that Stan McDonald, attorney at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, a partner there, he's a 30-year veteran of the practice of law. Stan McDonald is the sponsor daily of the Right Side Way monologue, and I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a few minutes. All right, so talking about elections. I had a conversation a few years back with a lady who was the mayor of a small town right here in Alabama. She had been an employee of the town long before that, and she didn't like the way it was being run, so she just up and decided to run for mayor. Well, the first time around, she ran against the longtime incumbent, and she told me that on election night, she and her supporters gathered up at town hall to watch the ballots be counted. And as the results came in, she was leading. And then the incumbent mayor was leading. And then it was a close race, and then it was back and forth as the ballots slowly began to come in. She said that the man she was running against, the incumbent, he was pacing the floor, he was nervous, he was fretful. But then he went in the back room to talk with someone, and suddenly he came out smiling. Why? Because in her words, a whole passel of absentee ballots had just been, quote unquote, found, and he came out ahead after they were opened and counted. In later years, after he was gone, she ran again and won easily. But she never forgot that moment that the election changed when odd things happened. You see, when votes are cast, the voters need to know they were counted. When ballots are counted, voters need to know they're accurate. When results are announced, voters need to believe they are correct. But hey, just a small town, right? No big deal. Just another small town election. Well, nothing that changes the big picture, except that, maybe, the same mayor who was blessed with a bunch of found ballots in the back room went on to get elected to another office at state level and was swept up in some corruption scandals. So what if the election had more integrity back when he was running for another term as mayor? Could it have changed things? We'll never know. What I do know is this. We have to be able to trust the election process at every single level, whether it be small-town mayors up to President of the United States. We can't have jackleg, third-world ballot stuffing, ballot harvesting, voter intimidation, counting irregularities, candidate suppression, none of it. This is a first-world country, and we need first-world elections. And I've seen it before, by the way. Right here in Alabama, we had a crossover voting that caused one state senator that I know to lose his multi-county race by one single vote. Or how about this? I fought a legal battle for one city council candidate. She lost her race by one single vote for a city council. As her attorney, we identified 9 ballots that should have been counted, and the judge agreed with us. And when we opened them, they unfortunately still went 5-4 in favor of the other side, so my client still lost by 1. In that case, I unfortunately had to say we won the case but lost the race. But the point is, we found ballots that absolutely should have been counted, and we proved it to the judge's satisfaction. Well, yesterday, President Trump issued a new executive order. In case you haven't heard, it deals with election integrity. And the order is very simple. It requires documented proof of citizenship to vote in U.S. federal elections. Sounds reasonable to me, but the left is already melting down over it. They claim that millions of voters will be disenfranchised because they don't have the documents to prove where they're from. No birth certificates, apparently, no marriage licenses, no proof of military service, nothing to prove your citizenship. The left claims that women who changed their name when they were married might have a hard time proving who they really are. Once again, the left goes straight to the idea that good people can't be trusted to handle life. So we should just dumb down the processes and accommodate the small minority of people who apparently struggle to tie their shoes. Look, take a look at America's illegal alien problem right now. The Trump administration is working feverishly to reduce the presence of millions of illegal aliens as I speak. The left is working to resist that. But given that we have so many present in the U.S. right now, and further given that we have had so much instability in our election processes in recent years, why would we not want to merely require proof of citizenship to be able to vote? I mean, it's not like every election is perfect, right? But we can try to make it perfect. The pursuit of perfection is still honorable. We cannot be a first world country and run third world elections. It would be an abuse of the voters of the whole nation not to push for clean, honest election integrity, which may include, oh, by the way, photo ID and, oh, by the way, proof of citizenship. I mean, when you consider that every state's electors could come into play in the next presidential election again, my friends, this kind of third world election tampering, that's despotism and it has to stop. There's some examples on the world stage in history. How about this, 1933? Adolf Hitler. He had members of his 2 main opposing parties arrested, many of them executed. A fire mysteriously broke out at the Reichstag, the seat of German government. Hitler immediately blamed the opposition. He stoked up fears in the hearts of Germans, and because of that, he was able to help pass an edict that effectively ended civil liberties of German citizens. And with the opposition crushed by allegations of insurrection, those who survived suddenly threw their support behind Hitler and the Nazi Party, to then pass what became known as the Enabling Act. The Enabling Act that gave the Nazi parties full-on dictatorial powers. Well, you know, when you make sure your opposition can't oppose you, the vote count gets pretty easy. Or how about Uganda? The African nation of Uganda, 2006, the first multi-party elections in 2 decades were held. President Yoweri Museveni had been in power since 1986, but for the first time, a viable opposition candidate had arisen. Until suddenly, the opposition candidate, whose name was Besigye, he was charged with treason and other crimes. Besigye was arrested, and even though his supporters protested and demonstrated, it changed the tide of the election, and President Museveni easily won his so-called election. Picture what almost happened to Trump with all the lawfare we just saw. Sound familiar? How about this? In 2012, Russian President Medvedev nominated Vladimir Putin to come back and run for a 3rd overall term, which Putin gladly accepted, while also promising to make Medvedev his prime minister. The election was fraught with accusations of everything from ballot box stuffing to voters being bussed in from precinct to precinct so they could vote multiple times. There were procedural irregularities in vote counting. There were protests that ensued, but to no avail. Putin was named president, and he remains in power now 11 years later, and he's the first in the modern age to invade a European nation in an act of war. By the way, we have one of the most interesting and dynamic state elections ongoing right this minute in the U.S. Where? Wisconsin. Wisconsin? Yes, Wisconsin. Voters in Wisconsin are all in for election to the state Supreme Court. Why do we care? We live in the Deep South. That's Wisconsin, for crying out loud. Yeah, but it turns out the Wisconsin Supreme Court has some very close margins for conservatives. But the liberals in Wisconsin, they want to redraw their congressional lines right now. They want to redraw them in a way that might actually help Democrats gain 2 congressional seats in the Badger State. Well, look at how close the balance of power is right now in D.C. If 2 seats get flipped to the Democrats, it could stop the Republican control of D.C. dead in its tracks. So guess which body of elected power might have the most say in that issue? And you guessed it, it's the Wisconsin Supreme Court. At this point, that race has become the most expensive race in judicial election history in the entire nation. Over $56 million has flooded into that one race for the state Supreme Court in Wisconsin. Elon Musk himself has committed millions from his own PAC for the leading Republican, and the left has been showering their liberal candidate with millions as well. The whole balance of power in the nation, the whole Trump agenda, one election in one state, Wisconsin, it could matter. Don't you think we ought to care about the election processes in the state of Wisconsin? Yeah, I do. All right, so having said all that, let me ask you, what happens when election processes, election integrity, even election laws are ignored or abused? When that happens, we get despotism, we get tyrants, we get dictators, we get disaster. You see, elections matter at every level. Anything less than the pursuit of perfection can result in tyranny, and I fear for our country if we don't set the situation right. So I'm glad that President Trump took the bold step he did last night. And we need to constantly stay on guard when it comes to protecting the integrity of our elections everywhere, local, state, federal. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, it's real. I mean, I had somebody one time that said to me, it's a small town. What does it matter? Small town. How about this? The town of, I think it's Uniontown, Alabama? About 10 years ago, 112% of the population turned out to vote. 112%? How does that work? It doesn't. Yeah, investigations ensued thereafter. It matters, no matter what level you're at. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Man, making common sense like a superpower. All right, I got to tell you before I go any further, attorney Stan McDonald. So, yeah, Stan McDonald, he's a partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee up in Huntsville, 30-year veteran in the practice of law. And listen, I know Stan personally, so when I say what I'm about to say, I say it knowing it full well. Stan McDonald is not only somebody who can advocate for your legal needs well, but he has been a warrior in the mix on things like politics and policy that right-side ruffians care about for years. I mean, the guy's an OG ruffian. He's one of us. So yeah, attorney Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He knows how to represent you in every local, state, or federal court. I'd like to say if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So if you want to reach him, you need a lawyer in North Alabama. Here's the number. I'm going to give it to you. Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man, and his number is 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. And tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that. And here's the thing. No representation made, the quality of legal service be performed as great as the quality of legal service for other lawyers. Smooth, dude.
That's like a 7-7 right there.
Oh, 7-7?
That's pretty.
I had an 8-8 yesterday.
Yeah, I know. Yesterday was a good one. You were ready to go.
That was no mulligan either.
That's true.
That was a one-shot, one-kill on that one. All right, hey, text lines are open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it, same number for both. We'll get your input. My text lines appear to be working today, JP.
For now.
Stop that.
Until we get hacked again, apparently.
Yeah. Please don't. All right, yeah, text it or call it, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Tell us what you're thinking. Elections, do you care? I think most of us do. But we ought to keep on caring. And I love the fact that Trump issued that executive order last night. It's key. It's crucial. And it's going to require proof of citizenship. And the libs, of course, went straight to the idea that people won't be able to comply because, people are dumb and stuff. And we got to rescue them from their dumbness. Well, we'll see. Also, JP was telling me just a minute ago, total change of subject. But what's the deal with that case? So the same judge that stopped the deportations or tried to?
So apparently James Boasberg, the judge who, required them to bring back the deportation flights, is on the same case that is involving the Signal chat leak. But then my question is, what is the lawsuit here? Like the case name says American Oversight versus Hegseth.
What?
What is American Oversight?
What is the basis for the lawsuit?
I have no idea.
So when you file suit, you have to have two, as an attorney, I'll tell you, you have to have two things. You have to have a cause of action and you have to have damages. What is their cause of action and what are their damages?
I have no idea. And American Oversight, who is that? Who is that?
Yeah, it's Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah.
She and AOC formed a little company, do a little something.
Probably.
Get a little something over. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. I'm talking about this show, y'all. Goes from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. From Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to the loveliest little town on the plains called Auburn, stretching across to that place we now recall Fort Benning. Fort Benning, and I mean to say even big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right. Hey, listen, I got to tell you guys, just a reminder, Rightside Radio, that's only one production of the overall company, Rightside Media. So Rightside Media, we got a ton of stuff, lots of podcasts. We have the written work. We have any number of things you can draw from. All of it can be found on our website, rightsidemedia.org. And I will also tell you that today, my latest podcast that comes out weekly, The Right Philosophy, just came out today, this morning, right? 11 o'clock-ish. Is that when it posted?
Yep, 11 a.m.
All right. The Right Philosophy, latest edition, is out today. And do us a favor, if you go to our YouTube, one of the things that's really interesting about the way the whole digital environment works is we are allowed to grow as a company as long as we can show followers and or likers and that kind of stuff. So if you go to YouTube and you're watching any of our stuff, all the short videos and other things we put up there, plus our podcasts and things, do me a favor, subscribe to it. It would mean the world to us because the more subscribers that we have, the more YouTube then allows us to be able to do. It grows us as a company when you guys do that. Costs you nothing to subscribe or hit like on social media, whatever the case may be. But yeah, the latest edition of Right Philosophy is out. What was that call you took a minute ago, bud? Was that Sparky, you said?
Yeah, shout out to Sparky from Harvest off there. He was informing me on this group called American Oversight, who's suing for the Signal chat leak. I've never heard of them before, but apparently they're like a left-wing group.
Like a watchdog kind of group?
A watchdog. That's their title in their description on their website. And they claim to be nonpartisan, by the way.
Nonpartisan?
Yeah.
Sure they are.
But they've got dozens of lawsuits against Trump and anything Trump. So pretty much their goal is to just kind of wreak havoc with lawsuits, it seems. And any chance they can, they're going to do it. They're going to sue. Seems to be their goal. But I'm looking at this description here from Axios. It says that American Oversight alleges in its lawsuit that the chat on the unclassified commercial app that mistakenly included the Atlantic's editor-in-chief violated federal records laws. That's what they're claiming.
Shut up.
And said that they're looking to uncover or recover unlawfully deleted messages and prevent further destruction, is their quote.
Whatever. And by the way, this is not my dipper. I'm going to jump off this topic very quickly here, but I'll just recap. You and I were texting this morning. Jeffrey Goldberg, the Atlantic reporter who got added to that text string, that Signal text string, began releasing more text. I told you he was holding back.
Yeah.
He was staging it. He wanted to be able to see what the reaction was and then draw the story out. But it's turning into a nothing burger.
It was a complete nothing burger. It's like his thread showed nothing.
Let me say this. It is, but it ain't.
Yeah.
In terms of what was revealed, it was not. In terms of the fact that it happened at all, it was. So I am not going to minimize the fact that we have a breach of, maybe not breach of security per se, but a breach of protocol at the very least. I will say this, though. This morning I saw an article, Michael Waltz, National Security Advisor, former Green Beret congressman. He's the one whose team put together that thread and sent out all the invitations. And inadvertently, for whatever reason, that reporter got added to it. Michael Waltz said this morning he accepts full responsibility. And I thought, I didn't hear anybody in the Biden administration for 4 years say that.
Nope.
There was never a time that I can remember where someone said, I accept full responsibility for what happened.
None of them took responsibility for the Afghanistan withdrawal.
No.
And I'd say that was infinitely worse than this
And I don't
situation.
remember any of them taking, the only person who got sort of held accountable was when Trump got shot at Butler and the head of the Secret Service resigned. But listen, she wasn't going to stay anyway. Her job was going to be over as soon as Trump got elected. But the reality is I don't remember anyone saying along the way, that happened and I accept full responsibility. But it happened with this, And the whole thing is going to wind up blowing over, and they're going to make corrections. Someone, though, needs to talk about this guy, the reporter, and I'm not going to slam him for being in it. He didn't ask to be added to it, apparently. But once he knew he was in it, he made the most of it. And there's a big difference between having a confidential informant that gives you something to report and having yourself accidentally stumble into something you realize has national security protocols attached to it, and you're not supposed to be there, and you know it.
Yeah.
And he waited for days.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to this just blowing over because Democrats, they're seeing this as their chance.
That's all they've got.
Like, oh, finally, something,
That and Jasmine Crockett. That's all they got.
Yeah. The Hot Wheels.
The Hot Wheels.
Comment, yeah.
What an idiot. All right, let's jump in now. Let's talk about some things. By the way, I'll tell you what, I get a few text messages. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, when it comes to voting, the Democrats have a lifetime, and even after a lifetime, habit of voting straight ticket. Said, and I figure a lot of those zombie Democrats for the ones still drawing their Social Security money. And then he says, got to put an end to the corruption in all forms of government, judiciary, executive, Congress. A lot of shenanigans have been going on over the years. He said, the closest I've seen people trying to hold government accountable is the J6 riots, which I think was justifiable because we had an unconstitutional election certified when it should not have been. That was a lot of text. That was Jeff driving down the road doing stream of consciousness voice texting is what that was.
Got a lot to think about.
There wasn't a period or a comma in the entire thing. Thank you, Jeff. John from Huntsville says, Phil, spectacular monologue. Also, did you hear that apparently RFK Jr. and Novak Djokovic played a friendly tennis match against? I did not hear that.
I saw he posted a picture of that, yeah.
Was it legit?
Yeah. RFK and
Why didn't
Novak.
they play pickleball? He could have had a better chance playing pickleball.
He could have a better chance, yeah.
We got a new texter who's not told us who he is or where he's from, asking about Stan McDonald, so I'll just let that one go for the moment. But if you would, tell us who you're from, who you are and where you're from. Butch from Athens says, federal elections will require the Real ID driver's license, the Star Card. Alabama's driver's license, which are not Star Card now, have, quote, not for federal identification printed on the front. Aaliyah is going to be busy. Yeah, I suspect I'm going to wind up having to get that stupid Star Card unless they repeal it pretty soon. But now that Trump is requiring that, I imagine that means I'll have to get it. Wiley from Gunnersville says, kudos to POTUS Trump for the EO last night, the executive order requiring government-issued ID in order to vote. Of course, this will be challenged in court, but this is the, quote, method to the madness. Get the policies out early and often so they can be adjudicated with ample time to reach a decision before our elections are upon us. The same goes for several other EOs that are in court now, often and early so we can get on with adults running the country for a change. I agree. I think that's exactly why he's doing as much as he can in the first 100 days. But let's not forget, it's not going to be the 2028 elections. We have midterms coming up. We've got Senate and House. Big deal. Federal elections. And you know what? Once they make these changes, then they ought to be applied to states. So, state elections. Big doings. Shane from Lacey Springs says it's okay to delete texts and emails as long as your last name is Clinton. Yes. Yes. No, not at all. Lee from Madison says, Republicans need to make sure commie-crat state officials don't slow walk getting the birth certificate sent to people when they request or pay for replacements. I had to get a replacement once. It took 6 months till I received it. Yeah, man, I know. And I believe there will be some expedited effort to do that kind of thing. And they're going to also have to label the criteria by which you're allowed to prove your citizenship. Is it always a birth certificate? Can it be a marriage certificate? Can you have, sometimes hospitals issue a certificate of live birth as opposed to the state-run, the actual certified birth certificate? Does it have to be a certified copy, or will a Xerox copy work? Can you show a DD-214 for proof of military service and that count? If you're a foreign national but you're married to a U.S. citizen, can you just show a marriage certificate and that's all that counts? If you have a green card or whatever else, are you on a list so they can screen you? I mean, there's going to be a lot of cross-pollination of voter lists and citizenship lists and all of it. State Department's going to get involved. It's going to be comprehensive, but it is so necessary. And yes, there will be some pain for some. But by and large, Democrats will constantly tell you, you can't possibly figure that out because you're not smart enough. That's why the government is here, to help you through your day. No, it doesn't work like that. So in what year was this? 13 or 14, I believe it was. When I was in the Alabama Senate, we passed photo voter ID. And it was all the same stuff. You're going to disenfranchise voters. This is racist because black people don't know how to get a photo ID. I mean, it went on and on and on. It was such an insult to the average citizen, especially black citizens, because we were being told over and over again, black people don't know how to get a photo ID. It was nuts. So as a part of the law, not only do we say you got to have it, but we said, if you don't have a driver's license, the state will make available to you a photo ID at no charge. And you had to just go get it. And then guess what? We realized that some people may have transportation problems. And so that was their next argument. And so what did we do? We took that away. We started putting up as a state, and it was Secretary of State John Merrill at the time. He put up mobile photo ID booths, and they would announce it. We're coming to your community. We'll be at the Publix, parking lot. And people would show up in lines. And John Merrill said, even to the extent that if someone can't get one and they can't get it, I will go to their house and help them do it there. And he did on more than one occasion. So all I'm saying is this, it can happen. And the excuses that we get about why it can't happen are usually lame and involve the idea that somehow or another the average person is too stupid to be able to walk around with any sense. I mean, walking around sense is not hard. And if you can get a Costco card, if you can buy an airline ticket, if you can sign up for Netflix, if you can do all these things that it takes to give personal information and get your stuff, then by God, you can get a photo ID. Most people of voter age already have it. And those that don't, we're going to make a way for them to get it. And those that still don't, it's going to wind up being on them. And when they say, I wasn't allowed to vote, we're going to say, well, there's a law. So, is there a constitutional right to vote? Yes, there is. And are we saying we don't want people who are constitutionally otherwise disallowed to be able to vote? That's what we're saying. So then what's the measuring stick? Do you screen people, or do you just say, yeah, do what you want to do, we trust you? No, you screen people. Trust but verify, right? Trust but verify. That's the way we're going to do things. So the executive order, I've actually got it right here, and I'll just mention it to you, and I'll talk about it more after the break. But the executive order is actually pretty lengthy. Didn't realize when I printed it out that it was going to be 10 pages, but nonetheless, the White House has posted it today. It's called Preserving and Protecting the Integrity of American Elections. Executive order signed last night. We come back from this break, I will tell you more about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. Kevin from Huntsville checking in. He is our brand new texter. Appreciate you. He's talking about Stan McDonald was apparently involved in a local football team. He says, I'm one of the coaches. And his boys played the first couple of years too. Yeah, appreciate it, Kevin. Thank you very much. Mark from Red Bay says, tried to pick up a package at the post office without a photo ID. It's not going to happen unless they know you personally. That's so true. Listen, for business purposes, my office, we had to contact the IRS yesterday to verify some things. I have to go through the whole. Have anybody seen Real ID? Have you seen that thing? Or ID Me, ID.me?
No.
Oh my gosh. It's biometric. They have to take a picture of your face and send it. You have to go log in. It takes a picture of your face. Then you have to take a picture of your thumbprint. Then you have to take a picture of your driver's license, front and back. And I mean, I finally said, do you want the birth certificate, the birthmark on my left leg too? What is happening right now? And then, all it is I want to know, we got to mail out 1099s for people. Can we just please? Well, I'm sorry, sir. We're going to have to talk to you about this. You need a real ID. And I'm like, stop it. I've been in business now for 15 years. Who did this? Anyway, and people are saying we can't vote.
Yeah.
Brian from Huntsville says, if you're too ignorant, not stupid, to get a photo ID to vote, or just ask for help, then you should be too ignorant to vote. Well, now. You know what, though? Jasmine Crockett's in office, so apparently there's not an intelligence quotient involved with voting. Gary from Leicester, Alabama says, most Democrats are what they accuse their constituents of being. Well, there's that. Oh, right before that, he had said, isn't it treasonous to release sensitive info to the public regardless of how you received it? Don't know the answer to that per se. I think it's certainly an ethics violation at the very least. Lynn from Knoxville, Tennessee says, I've been in Tennessee for 8 years. They've always required ID. Nobody whines and complains. There you go. Thank you, Lynn. Paul from Athens, Alabama says, it's funny they can get a photo ID to get SNAP or welfare or commit fraud for SSA benefits, but they can't get a photo ID to vote. If you can't prove who you are, then you don't need to vote. Yeah, what he's talking about there is the argument is always it will disenfranchise lower income voters. And that's such a crock. I mean, it just really is. Okay, enough of that. Let me just move on. I got this. This is the White House's issuance of last night's executive order. And Trump points out in the opening to it as to the purpose and the policy that they're enacting. It says, despite pioneering self-government, the United States now fails to enforce basic and necessary election protections employed by modern developed nations. Points out that India and Brazil are tying voter ID to biometric databases. Germany and Canada require use of paper ballots. Denmark and Sweden limit mail-in voting. And yet we don't do any of those things. And we're supposedly the leader of the free world. He says free, fair, and honest elections unmarred by fraud, error, or suspicion are fundamental to maintaining our constitutional republic. He also points out how many states, and this drives me crazy, like when did it become an election season? Like you could start voting. Early voting begins, why don't we start early voting 2 years out? I mean, good Lord.
If they're early voting, then that's just when the voting starts. Like how is it early voting?
Just go to voter day.
You're voting. Like it's like, oh, they're getting in before, like they're voting early. It's like, no, they're just like, that's just when the voting starts apparently,
It's nuts. The other thing that they allow too, JP, you've seen it, I'm sure, is how many states allow the ballots to be received past election day.
Yeah.
And then they go with sometimes even without any concern about the postmark. So it's just, it's gross. So federal laws, they point out here, prohibit foreign nationals from registering to vote, yet states also fail adequately to vet their voter citizenship. In a little while, we heard from Secretary of State Wes Allen about measures he's taken to fix that. So here's where it gets into the order. Within 30 days of the date of this order, the Election Assistance Commission shall take appropriate action to require in its national mail voter registration forms, A, documentary proof of U.S. citizenship, B, state or local officials to record the type of document that was presented to get the citizenship certification. And those documents used can be a U.S. passport, requirements of the Real ID Act, which is going to be like a star ID, that kind of stuff, or an official military identification card indicating citizenship, or a valid federal or state government issued photo identification. And so on and on. It's got a few other things in here, but the reality is they're saying what you can do, and they're giving us plenty of time to work it. I guarantee it's going to court. Just stand by. But then he also says, we will also provide other assistance to states verifying eligibility. In other words, he's ordering right now the Commissioner of Social Security to make sure that they scrub the database so that if a voter roster in Alabama has someone who is not listed as deceased, but Social Security shows him deceased, they can compare. The Attorney General also enforce compliance, which leads me to the next page, because there are adding serious emphasis on the prosecution of election crimes. The Attorney General shall take all appropriate action to enter into information sharing agreements, and these agreements shall aim to provide the DOJ with detailed information on violations. And then they go into the, oh yeah, we're going to prosecute. And then it gets into the idea that if you're not going to do this, states, guess what? You may be losing some federal funding. Lots to talk about. Coming up next, Brian Taylor, former state senator, talking to me about being a lawyer in a recent election malfeasance case. I'll tell you all about it in a minute. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on Hump Day. We're going to get you all the way to go home time today and to the weekend, so stand by. Listen, we're in number 1 of the Triple Dipper here, talking about election matters. Not just that elections matter, but election matters themselves. What is happening with the elections? And you saw last night, we talked about it at length a little while ago. President Trump signed a new executive order last night dealing with election integrity. In this case, it's going to be largely centered around the idea of proof of citizenship for federal elections. We've got photo voter ID in Alabama, which when I was in the legislature, we helped pass. It has worked quite well, despite all of the liberal fear-mongering that somehow it would disenfranchise a whole swath of voters because they aren't smart enough to get a photo ID, and yet we fixed that for them. But listen, I cannot say enough about why voter integrity, or election integrity matters at every single level. The smallest town in my district when I was in the state Senate was the town of Ridgeville, where, if I recall, the mayor won by a vote of 19-12. 19-12 to be a mayor. And the reality is, if there had been voter fraud in that one, I believe they still would have cared, even though the town had a vote of 19-12. Well, listen, I got a friend of mine, Brian Taylor. He's a former state senator. We served together in the Alabama legislature. Brian also was a candidate for the Supreme Court of the state of Alabama. He's a practicing attorney. He's a former Army officer, a JAG officer. And he's also, like I've been in the past, he has been representing someone in an election dispute, which has been dating back to the 2022 election. He's on the phone right now. Brian Taylor, how you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great, Phil. Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. Sorry for that extra long introduction there, but listen, man, you've been representing a client who ran for sheriff in Conecuh County. And it's just crazy to me that you've got a case dating back to 2022, which is just going to trial recently, but it's also strictly involving potential discrepancies in voter count. Tell us what you got.
Yeah, I tell you, well, this initially was not my case. I got a call from the party last September asking if I would jump in and take it over and get it back on track because it had just stalled. It's not really clear why it stalled, but the judge had never set a trial date, and so it just wasn't moving along. So I jumped in on the case in September, and this deals with a general election in 2022 for sheriff of Conecuh County. When the votes came in on election day, when the provisional votes were counted after election day, it was a tie vote. Just about a couple thousand votes each, but it was a tie vote. And so in Alabama, as you know, Phil, that triggers an automatic recount.
Yeah.
And so the canvassing board, which is 3 elected officials in the county, meets and they consider those ballots. They recount those ballots. In Conecuh County, a lot of people wouldn't believe this about Alabama, but as you know, it's in some pockets of Alabama, it's still very heavily Democrat.
Oh, yeah.
So all 3 elected officials of the canvassing board were Democrats. In fact, one member of the canvassing board was the contestee or the respondent in this lawsuit, the sheriff. He was the one being challenged by the Republican who is our client. So they replaced him on the canvassing board with, I believe it was the county commission chairman, who was also a Democrat. And they met, they held the recount, and they certified the Democrat sheriff, who was the incumbent, as the winner by 1 or 2 votes. We're not really sure because the testimony at trial conflicts. We presented testimony from a poll watcher who was also the Republican chairman for the county, and she testified that the probate judge jumped up at the end of the recount and announced a 1-vote difference in favor of the Democrat incumbent. However, the probate judge has testified it was a two-vote difference. So that in and of itself is a conflict. But we introduced enough evidence at the trial so far that I think to overcome whatever the vote difference is, we've got pretty clear evidence that the Republican hands down should have won that race.
Okay, so listen, for folks who are playing catch up on this, first of all, the sheriff's race is actually a really big deal. It's a constitutional figure in the county, which has a lot of power. And so you got a guy who was running against a longtime Democrat incumbent and tied him. And then when everything's said and done, he's down by one, maybe two. All right, but you presented evidence at trial, which is a matter of public record. I know you've already had, you had a day of trial, let's put it that way. But you presented evidence like live testimony of people saying, that's not my ballot, I'm not the one who filled that out.
Right, and in our investigation leading up to trial, we had an investigator who interviewed a dozen or more absentee voters, or folks who had absentee ballots cast in their name, who actually told the investigator that they never voted in the election.
Wow.
And when we went through the ballots, there were a couple of names, Phil, that showed up time and time and time again, ballot after ballot, as a witness. So that indicated to us that there was some degree of ballot harvesting going on.
Yeah.
Now, ballot harvesting, as we know it today under Alabama law, was not illegal in 2022, but I'm talking about the kind of ballot harvesting where somebody comes along and votes your ballot for you, turns it in, you never actually cast a vote, but the party or some candidate, the machine gets that vote for the candidate, regardless of whether the ballot was legal or illegal. So it's our job in the election contest to present evidence that the ballot that was counted for a candidate, for the incumbent sheriff, the Democrat in this case, was not a legally cast ballot. And just as an example, we had one witness come to the stand. She testified that she did not vote in the election. She testified that some girl came to her house, got her ballot, left with the ballot. She said, I did not vote in this election. She was unequivocal about it. That testimony was absolutely uncontroverted. And because it was uncontroverted, as you know, it has to be accepted by the court.
That's right.
As the truth. There's no basis for the court, no reasonable basis for the court to conclude otherwise. So we had that.
Well, let me ask you this. You talk about. Let me ask you real quick, Brian. You talk about uncontroverted evidence, but I'm reading an article from 1819 right now about this particular trial y'all had, and what I'm hearing is in the article is that the incumbent didn't even put on witnesses. So you guys brought in a case in chief, and the incumbent never even put on a witness of any kind. Is that right?
That's right, and we haven't even closed our case yet. So we subpoenaed a number of witnesses, including the witness who we believe was collecting ballots. They did not appear at trial in violation of those subpoenas, and we've asked the judge to compel their attendance at the second day of hearing, the second day of trial. But out of the blue, we got this order yesterday just dismissing the case.
Wow. And
declaring the incumbent Democrat sheriff the winner based, and this is what's crazy, Phil, based strictly on the probate judge's word about the recount certification.
Stop
there
it.
There was no certification of the recount. There's nothing on record showing what the recount vote total finally was.
Look, you've got to measure your statements because you're still technically before that court with a right of appeal. But I'm going to tell you right now, that's a jackleg ruling right there. That is absolutely, you don't have to affirm or deny. But that's a jackleg ruling, brother. That is a judge who just acted sua sponte without having any grounds to do so, and is probably plainly and palpably wrong with an abuse of conduct or abuse of discretion.
Well, we're going to ask the judge to reconsider that and hope that he'll see our point and that it's reversible error. If the judge is not inclined to correct that error himself, we'll appeal it. And I think, like you said, I think it's a pretty good case on appeal to just. There's no basis for the ruling at this point in time. Not only that, but the document that the probate judge says was the result of the recount 2 years ago actually has a date of that it was printed of March 6th, 2 days after the hearing in this case.
What?
And the judge has accepted that document. So we have a document produced after the hearing that purports to be the certified result of the recount, and it just came out of nowhere. It was 2 days after the hearing was presented to the court, and the court has accepted that over our objection. So we have a number of grounds to appeal the case, a number of grounds that we're going to call the judge's attention to and ask him to reconsider.
Listen, man, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to make sure that I don't go above the speed limit through Conecuh County. And this does not affect my love for Conecuh sausage, but that is a sausage-making courthouse down there, it sounds like.
Well, now this judge, Judge Kittrell, is actually, as I understand it, has a pretty good reputation. He's a retired judge. He was specially appointed on this case 2 years ago by Justice Tom Parker in Alabama. The Chief Justice appoints special judges to hear these type cases when the local judge recuses, as happened here. So, I'm going to keep the faith that Judge Kittrell will agree with us and see that the decision was erroneous and untimely. At best, it was premature, and we'll see if we can fix this before we appeal it. And if not, we're not afraid to go straight to the next higher court.
Well, real quick, brother, with about a minute left, obviously you're neck deep in this thing and you care, and you've got a client whose interests you're going to zealously pursue, but you've also been an elected official yourself. You've run campaigns, and I know you've seen it at all levels, but would you agree that election integrity matters, and no matter what level we're at? That was a gimme question.
Yeah, look, you hit. A lot of people. It's tempting to say, "Man, this is a sheriff's race in a small county in Alabama. Who really cares? What's the relevance?" It is absolute. We have to remember this could have happened in Conecuh County in any race. The sheriff's race was just one race on the ballot. What if this had happened in the governor's race or a U.S. Senate race? You have to have election integrity in every race, or the system just breaks down. And more importantly, and what this case demonstrates, is that you have to have an independent judiciary.
Yeah.
This is a Democrat judge who's hearing this case, and I think he understands. At least we're going to help him understand that he needs to look at this from a nonpartisan, independent perspective, and he needs to call balls and strikes. And if we don't have a judiciary that stands up and renders fair, impartial, and independent judgments, then we can't have an election integrity in this country. And if you don't have election integrity, you don't have a country.
No, it's exactly right. So well said. And listen, I think it's also fair to point out there are laws that allow the challenging of a ballot count, and that's what you're doing. And after 2020, everybody said you can't challenge that. Yes, you can. The laws of every state have the means and methods by which you can legally challenge the results of an election.
That's right, and we're going to argue we still have the right to put on evidence in this case. We haven't rested. The judge has not even examined some of the election day ballots. You and I just talked about absentee ballots, but there were ballots cast on election day that improperly marked that need to be assessed by the court as to whether they count as a vote.
God,
I hate to bring it up, but it goes back to Bush v. Gore and determining voter intent. Yeah,
hanging chads. Oh man. Well, listen, man, I got to leave it there. I ran long just trying to get all that in, but great job on your part. Stay in the fight and keep us posted on this, and we'll have you back on for an update when the time comes, all right?
Will do. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. All right, I did run long. We got to go to a break. Let's take the break right now, JP, but I hope y'all are hearing this. Y'all, that's a county in our state where we have some of the best voter laws in the nation, and it still looks shady as crap, and it's right here in Alabama. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades. That's what we're doing. All right, so I'm still in this section on election matters. And coming up here in just a moment, we're going to have Alabama's Secretary of State, Wes Allen, coming on with us. I mean, he's had some big doings going on. Number one, he has a press release about Trump's executive order. And then he also most recently had a lawsuit that was, the Biden administration suing him has been dropped. And then, oh, by the way, he also has helped pioneer a interstate database so that states can compare their voter rolls to make sure if somebody moves that they don't get counted in two states. He's done some great stuff to clean up our voter rolls. We're going to talk to him about all of it. Secretary of State Wes Allen here momentarily. I got a couple of text messages to see right now. Phil, do you have any? I don't. That's Roughly Ann asking me about a trial about a police officer. No, I don't. Roughly Ann, I don't have anything on that right now. So sorry, I can't help you there. That is one I've looked into in the past. So I need to figure out what the latest is on that. Jeff from Indiana says, Phil, just remember when Alabama became a red state, all those Democrats didn't just disappear into the ether. They just changed their affiliation. It's hard for a leopard to change his job. There's that. Yeah, and by the way, some of them didn't even change their affiliation. They're just still out there doing what they do. But yeah, this is huge, y'all. And I told you there was a town in Alabama, and I got to look back and see, was it Uniontown, Union City? I've forgotten the name, but I want to say it was in the 2010 election. And the voter rolls were counted, and allegedly, like 112% of the town turned out to vote. Did you catch that? 112% of the town. That's like the town plus turned out to vote. That makes no sense. That's right. It makes no sense. That's why there were investigations. I don't know who might or might not have gone to jail, but all I know is it matters. Then we had most recently in the 2022 election cycle, we had some new district lines that had been drawn for state legislative races. And we had several counties in which the registrars were still so archaically run using, stubby pencils and paper maps on the wall that they could not tell where the lines were, and multiple people allegedly voted in the wrong districts. And some of those races were so incredibly close that may have changed things. There were registrars who lost their jobs because of that. I'm not kidding. And that was just in the last couple of years. But here's the thing. I'm glad they lost their jobs. I mean, I'm sorry they did, but I'm glad they did. They needed to go. There was a level of incompetence, and that can't be. And so when you look at it, on the one hand, you can go, well, that's messed up. The other part of it is, y'all, we cleaned house on it, all right? We just did. By the way, Jenny from Decatur has texted and said, it's Uniontown. My daughter lives there. She said it's horrible, and her dead grandfather-in-law voted. Wow. That is messed up.
Either something wrong happened, or I got news. Your dead grandfather is alive.
Yeah, and you might want to check. He's down the street, living large. Oh, wow, Jenny, thanks. All right, listen, coming up next, Alabama Secretary of State Wes Allen. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all have talked about this show. Whew. It goes from Huntsville all the way back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I mean down to that loveliest little town on the plains called Auburn, stretching across the line to what we now recall Fort Benning. And then there's big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, listen, somebody who's been on the show multiple times is somebody who I was proud to also serve with in the legislature. Secretary of State Wes Allen is a former probate judge, meaning that he was at one point the chief election officer for his county. He's now, after having served in the Alabama State House, he's serving as our Alabama Secretary of State. And literally making waves. He's even testified before Congress about matters that he has dealt with in terms of voter integrity, cleaning up the voter rolls, doing the things necessary. Among all the other stuff that secretaries of state do, he is the chief election officer for the state of Alabama. And he's on the phone right now. Secretary Wes Allen, how you doing?
Yes, sir. I'm good, Senator. Thank you so much, and congratulations on the growth of your show. I tell you what, a lot of hard work, and you're doing a good job.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that very much.
Yes, sir.
So, listen. I mean, I don't know where to start here, but we can do this. I know you saw the executive order signed last night by President Trump. You issued something about it this morning, I believe. Tell me how that impacts you at the state level and what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, thanks. No, it was good to see what President Trump has done, what it looks like when you've got a president leading from the White House about election integrity. It's a true victory for election integrity. And Phil, I tell you what really helps us is when you've got the federal government wanting to help us and allow us access to these federal databases. If you recall, back in late 23 and multiple times after that, I asked the Biden Department of Homeland Security for their list of legal non-citizens, the list that they have for the state of Alabama, so I could run that against our statewide voter file and see if anybody slipped through the cracks and if anybody's registered to vote. Well, they stonewalled us and just basically told us no, and then so we charted a course and developed our own system and to try to make sure that we didn't have any non-citizens on our voter file. And, of course, you saw what happened there. The DOJ sued us and private plaintiffs sued us, and we had a great set of facts. We were on solid legal footing from the get-go on all of that. And then, of course, not too long ago, the Trump DOJ, and decided, thankfully, to dismiss that case against us in Alabama, and
which never should have been filed.
No, absolutely. And then the private plaintiffs dismissed as well, and so we're very pleased, and we're going to continue. Listen, it's when votes are at stake, I'm going to always fight, just as I've done since taking the oath of office. I'm not going to stop working these voter lists. I mean, voter file maintenance is the foundation of election integrity, and I've been saying that wherever I go because that's where it all starts. And you've got to have robust, regular maintenance of your voter file. And if you don't, things can get off track in a hurry. And another thing that, President Trump's EO, does, it obviously calls for robust voter file maintenance. Well, we've been doing that. It calls for photo ID. We've got that.
Yeah.
It calls for paper ballots. We've got it. It calls for, obviously our tabulators cannot be connected to the internet. We passed a law to make sure that's happening. Ballots cannot be collected or counted after Election Day. We don't count or collect ballots after Election Day, so we are already doing that.
We're kind of a role model in many ways.
We are. We're in a good shape. We're in good shape. This EO also goes after foreign funding from foreign nationals trying to influence our elections or ballot initiatives. Matter of fact, right now we've got a bill in the House that just got out of the House by Representative James Lomax that we have been pushing, and it's on to the Senate now, but it's going to ban it at the state level, and we are mirroring federal law with that as well, because we don't need foreign nationals influencing our elections. I think we can all agree on that.
Absolutely.
And so, it's a lot of good things in this EO, and we're very pleased to see that.
How do you see the management of the portion that requires proof of citizenship? I remember back when we passed photo ID, it was the end of the world as we know it. It was racism. It was going to disenfranchise, lower income voters. It was going to be just the end of the constitutional right to vote in Alabama, none of which turned out to be true. But those same exact arguments are now being used to say you can't demand proof of citizenship. How do you see this playing out?
Well, they are doing the citizenship under federal election law, not under. They didn't mention anything about state or local elections. They mentioned federal election law, and they talk about requiring documentary proof of citizenship through the Real ID compliant ID. If you recall, that's one thing that our state is getting ready to implement fully starting on May the 7th. So if anybody's listening out there, if you want to fly in the United States and within the 50 states here, and make sure you have your real ID. So that's one thing. But I think that's really good. Of course, a U.S. passport is another way. Military ID is another way. Valid federal, state government-issued photo identification that indicates U.S. citizenship. So they're totally talking about federal election law and what is allowed already. They're not going out on a limb here. I think they're on solid legal footing.
Well, I think so. I think they are.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, listen, you've also been, your voter integrity database, that thing has grown. And I saw a press release that came out of your office when I was getting ready for the show today that y'all just added Texas to the voter integrity database. How big is that thing now? Are y'all nationwide? How many participating states do you have?
So we've got Tennessee, Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, Kentucky, Florida, Arkansas, of course, just added Texas. And I'll say that these are bilateral agreements with these states.
Yeah.
So when we exchange data with Tennessee or we exchange data with Georgia or whoever it may be, we're working that on a bilateral agreement. And we've already verified and placed on a path for removal nearly 40,000 voters who've moved to surrounding states since 2024. And we've been working, like I said before, robust voter file maintenance. And with Texas, they've got 18 million registered voters.
Wow.
Of course, we've got a little over 3.7 million registered voters in our state, but we're continuing to grow that. We've got a couple more states that we are getting ready to add as well. So this thing continues to grow, and we're very, very proud of AVID and the Alabama Voter Integrity Database of what we've been able to accomplish since September of 2023.
Well, I agree, and I think it's been huge. I really do. When I said it a minute ago, I wasn't kidding when I say that I feel like in many ways, even though we may not be as big as Texas or California, it doesn't matter in terms of the quality. And I think that the manner and the means by which Alabama elections are prepared and then run and then tabulated and then certified is really one of the models, in my opinion, for the way it should be in other states.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And thank goodness for the probate judges, circuit clerks, sheriffs, and boards of registrars. We're all a team, and it takes a team. And, of course, the legislature over the years have put good policy in place. And we're very, very proud of the system that we have in Alabama. And, we're going to get up each and every day when we come into the Capitol, roll our sleeves up, and go to work. And, we're very, very proud of the team that we've assembled inside this office because we all have the same mindset and same philosophy.
Well, just for a reminder to our audience, election season's coming for Alabama again already. And remind me, isn't it 1 year out from the primary that some of the races for statewide offices can begin doing their thing? We're going to see the governor's race coming up and everything else. And so this is not like it's something we have to wait till 2028 to get it fixed. We have elections that are right around the corner in Alabama now.
It is. First off, you got majority of the state of Alabama municipal races will be August 20th.
Oh, that's right.
5th or 26th. So, 300 and something, 400 or so cities will be conducting elections. Then you've got obviously the May of 2026. We're almost a year out we're bumping up on a year away from the primary in May of 2026. So you can't wait until right before the election to take care of your voter file. You got to be constantly, day in and day out. It's like daily hygiene, Phil. You got to take a shower every day, wash your hair every day, brush your teeth. The same thing with voter file maintenance, right? So we're very, very proud of what we've been able to do.
So squeaky clean, that's what we're calling it. It's squeaky clean.
We're trying to. Heck yeah, man. We want to be the best. No doubt.
That's good. Well, listen, with everything going on, I just gotta ask, do you see any states? I mean, like right now, I'm already imagining and I'm hearing Democrats in general are bucking the executive order that was signed last night. But are there any states, Secretary of States, who, and I know we have Democrat and liberal progressive secretaries of state as surely as we have conservatives like you, but do we have other states that are going to fight this and be determined to go on the record as not wanting voter integrity?
Well, a lot of this stuff is just common sense, and it's lawful, and only American citizens should be voting in our elections, period. And from day one when I stepped in this office, that's what we've been working towards. It's hard to say what other states are going to be doing, but it's for Alabama and our team here in this office and all the local officials that I work with day in and day out. We are working to make Alabama the best elections process that we can possibly have.
Well, and I think we're doing it. Like I said, we're the model. And listen, Mr. Secretary, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being available today. In fact, when I texted you yesterday and asked if you could come on, I didn't even know we were going to have the executive order last night. So I found that out this morning when I got up and got ready for the show.
Well, appreciate you. No, thank you so much for the invitation. Always a pleasure.
Alabama Secretary of State Wes Allen, appreciate your time. We'll have you on again sometime soon. Thanks, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, listen, you do those, like you heard it, Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, I think you said Mississippi, a number of states are participating in the voter integrity database that Alabama helped pioneer. And all this does is scrub the roster. It just says, hey, we've got a John Smith over here that says he just moved from Georgia. Georgia, did you take him off your rolls? And we just compare notes back and forth. That way, and you would be amazed how many people think it's okay to vote at home and then go to their new home and vote there too. It doesn't work like that. You're allowed one vote for one person. All right, listen, we're going to take a break. That's enough of that. But listen, election matters. We talked about them. And by the way, elections matter. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Don't forget, by the way, coming up top of the next hour, we'll go to the Grand Council with Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. I'm about to get some text messages, but I got to tell you just a couple more things to wrap this up. So, voter fraud, voter integrity. Let me just end with this. There's a website, the Heritage Foundation has it. You can just type in Heritage Foundation election fraud map. And you can go to any state and you can see the convictions for people who have committed some form of election fraud. Alabama has 39 on record in the last, since the year 2000. It's amazing how many of those occurred in the year 2000. But I look at it and there are some even as recent in the last couple of years. In fact, let me just remind you of a couple things. One of those was a former elected state legislator, a Republican. Remember him? David Cole in Huntsville, this listening area. David Cole in Huntsville was apparently convicted, not apparently, he was convicted. He got a 3-year sentence, suspended, spent 60 days in jail, had to pay restitution of $52,000. What did he do? Well, he signed up to run for office, but he didn't live in the district. So he basically says that he leased a 5-foot by 5-foot walk-in closet in someone's home as a place to live in the district and then ran for office on that address. Didn't work. He's no longer in office. He spent time in jail. That's called fraud. But how about this one? So Trump issues his executive order last night requiring citizenship. Oh, is that really a problem? How about Angelica Maria Francisco, last year in Alabama, charged by federal authorities in Alabama with 9 criminal counts of fraudulently assuming the identity of a U.S. citizen, used the citizen's name, date of birth, social security number to illegally obtain a passport, and then, oh, by the way, used the false identity to register to vote in Alabama. Was she an illegal alien? Yes. Did she vote? Yes, in 2016 and in 2020. She was charged with 1 count of false statements, 1 count of aggravated identity theft, and 5 counts of use of a passport for false statements, and 2 counts of false claims to register to vote. She pled guilty on all counts. And yeah, that's an illegal alien voting in Alabama with a false identity. And oh, by the way, she didn't just try to, she did it. And she's been convicted. So that executive order was needed. And when you consider that that happened in Alabama last year, and she voted in 2016 and 2020, I can just tell you right now, I don't care who she voted for. She shouldn't have voted. It doesn't matter to me whether she cast a vote for a Republican. I don't care. She shouldn't have voted. And we have now tens of millions of illegal aliens, thank you, President Biden, who flooded our borders. How many of them will try to do what Angelica Maria Francisco did in the state of Alabama? In some states, all it takes is a few, and it can swing things one way or the other.
So I know you talked about this with Secretary Allen, but so this executive order requiring, voter ID for elections, that was part of it, right?
Yeah.
That states like California can't just decide not to follow that, right? Like it's a federal executive order. Like I know with other stuff, there's state law says this, but am I correct in saying California, states like California can't just be nah, we're not going to follow that. They have to follow it.
Some will try. I guarantee you,
I expect them to try,
and Illinois and New York will try not to follow it. But the interesting thing is he included the Real ID Act, the Star ID you have to get, because it was passed by Congress. So as much as we hate that thing, Trump is now able to use it for election integrity as an act of Congress, which already exists. All he's doing is saying it must apply to elections. If you can apply it to getting a plane ticket, surely you can apply it to getting a registration to vote.
Yeah. And I expect them to fight it, but it's not going to be one of those things where they just choose to ignore it. They're going to have to either fight it or, comply pretty much, I think.
Or lose funding.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Junebug from Hartsville checking in. Hey, Junebug. She says, thanks for introducing us to the great leaders in our state. Integrity and intelligence seems to be 2 words to accurately describe Wes Allen. I'd like to thank him for the outstanding job he's doing to keep our elections honest and fair. Perfect. Gary from Leicester, Alabama says, no one else I know. Oh, wait, back up. What did he say there before that? He's got several texts. Treasonous, and then he says this. Voter registration. I have a question for the secretary, I guess. He said, I have a voter registration form from the state of Alabama addressed to me where I live. I have no clue what it's about. I've been registered and have voted with no issues. The form asked for much more than a normal registration card. I did not return it. No one else I know has received one. It's very suspicious. Well, listen, brother, if you think you've got, listen, you can call the Secretary of State's office. You can ask them, did you mail this to me? There are a lot of scams out there right now. By the way, one of the latest scams we got it at our house is you haven't paid a outstanding toll when you pass the toll road. What? You get one of those too?
I've gotten several of those.
It's all a scam.
As a matter of fact, I actually got a spam call. Sometimes I like to have fun and answer the spam calls. Yeah. I answered the spam call, and it was this guy who sounded like he was calling from India, saying he was a border patrol officer calling from the southern border.
So Habib wanted to get you, huh?
He said his name was Bob, obviously, or something.
Bob.
He said, "I'm calling from the southern patrol office," and I just hung up. But I was like, "Come on. You got to do better than that."
Good Lord.
Have something more convincing than that.
All right, man, we're taking a break. We're coming right back with the Grand Council, Jeff Poor, Dale Jackson, and just little old me, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on Hump Day. We're going to get you all the way to go home time on a Friday. But before we do, you know the deal. Third hour, middle of the week, we got to go to a thing we call the Grand Council, where I bring in 2 of my brethren in talk radio, and we just ping each other with questions and see where the chips fall. So let me call the roll on what we call the Grand Council. Looking north from 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN's Dale Jackson's show host. Dale Jackson himself also does stuff with Yellowhammer. Also, by the way, has a TV gig. Dale Jackson, are you there? Outstanding. Stand at ease. All right. Turning southward down at FM Talk 1065 down yonder in Mobile, host of the Jeff Poor Show, editor-in-chief of 1819 News, also works with Breitbart and Lanyap. Jeff Poor, are you there?
I am present.
You are indeed. Thank you so much. All right. Well, listen, I pronounce a quorum. Hit it, man.
Assemble the Grand Council.
All right. You know what? I haven't gone first in a while. I'm doing that today. I'm taking a personal privilege here. So let me ask you both, since you are media moguls and you know the gig, if you were added to a group signal chat about things that seemed to imply national security issues were being discussed and you didn't know why you were there, would you just stay there and read it and then report on it? Or would you take some other kind of action? Jeff Poor, you first.
No, I got to thinking about that. What if that were me? What would and I were Jeffrey Goldberg? What would I have done? And I came to this kind of conclusion about this. I don't know what I would do. I still haven't gotten there. But Senator, if this is classified information, and it's not, but if it is, all I could think of is, well, why is it Jeffrey Goldberg? Why aren't we talking about prosecuting him for violating the Espionage Act for putting this in the Atlantic magazine?
Yeah.
Isn't that the question we need to be asking? And we're not talking about that at all. So I think the conclusion is pretty simple. It's not classified. Democrats have a good hand, and there's gross incompetence in this one action, but they're overplaying their hand.
I would agree. Dale, you first. What you got before I say anything else?
I changed my name to Elon Musk and say bomb Iran. That's what I do. That's what I do. But the real answer is I consume as much as they put out, and if there's anything there that's newsworthy, which it doesn't really appear there's much here that's newsworthy except for the adding of the journalist, I don't see what you would report.
Well, so I look at this thing, having worked in a TS SCI environment myself before and carried that clearance for a while. I know that they call it spillage. You have spillage that comes on occasionally with stuff getting out, and it shouldn't. But this was not like a protected source. This was not the confidential informant giving you something that you have a right to protect. This was you recognizing you walked into a room basically, and there were things there you're not supposed to see, and you knew it. And it says he sat there for days watching it, and then decided what to do with the stuff. And I thought, you know what? That's a little different. That's you taking advantage. And so me personally, I agree with Jeff. I think there's ought to at least be a discussion about what ethical obligations he had. Now, was it screwed up? Yeah, it was. It was absolutely a screw up, except for this. No one's really talking about the fact that I can't help but wonder, since they said they're going to prosecute leakers in the Pentagon, was this a counterintelligence opportunity to just see what would happen if we added him in and what he would do with it? So there's that. Just food for thought. All right, next question. Dale Jackson, what do you got?
Okay, so it looks like Georgia's doing this. All the states are discussing it around the country, the issue of banning cell phones. RFK has said he wants to do it now. Are we going to be in a world where the parents get off the hook by the school saying, sorry, no more cell phones, and the parents go, oh, darn, you can't take your cell phone to school? Are we going to have a federal government ruling, or is it going to be state by state?
Jeff, weigh in. What do you think?
It has to be state by state. It's not a federal constitutional thing. I think that's wishful thinking. It's got to be state by state.
I think it is going to be state by state. I also think it makes sense. I mean, you look at it, my gosh, it's like the kids are carrying around the biggest distraction in the world when they walk from one class to the next, and some of them don't even pay attention to where they're walking because they're too busy head down, getting a crick in their neck from staring at their phones or using it to cheat on tests or chatting with their friends or being on social media. So, maybe I'm old school because I'm old, but the reality is there's been an entire world of people that grew up not having a smartphone in their hands in school until the last 10 to 15 years. I say, cull it, and make it happen. Your own question, Dale. What are you thinking?
Well, I agree with you guys. The state should do this, but I just noticed, RK talking about it, and that usually means something at least is being discussed about this on a broader level somewhere. But you're right, the state should do it first.
Well, since the Department of Education is apparently going bye-bye, at least they say it is, it won't be coming from that. But we'll see. We'll see. All right, round one is flying by. Jeff, what intriguing question do you have for the group?
Senator, you said this in one of our offline discussions. You think if anybody goes after Coach Tuberville in this residency thing, and I think Dale probably agrees with you, it could backfire and wind up being a net positive for Tuberville. Why is that?
Yeah, I think for a couple of reasons. Number one, there better be and this is probably from that secret group signal chat that we're all in. But this is, to me, if they're going to come in with something that says, well, he goes to his beach house a lot, well, you better have more than that. So if you have a flimsy case, you're going to wind up embarrassing yourself. That's not going to help your case. But then the other piece of this is, look at where we are right now. We just watched Trump go through lawfare and have fake news tearing him a new one every time he turned around, and he stood up against it. And there's an empowerment right now against the idea of trying to destroy a good candidate. Tuberville has good street cred right now. He's got great popularity. He's somewhat of a populist senator, and he's not afraid to buck conventional wisdom. And oh, by the way, he's also going to probably get a Trump endorsement if he decides to run. So all said and done, the wind's at his back on this kind of thing. And if someone's going to come in and try to pull a fast one and not go on the merits of who he is as a candidate, but try to say, well, we think he has a residency somewhere else, the reality is those people who make that claim are going to immediately be lumped into the fake news, lawfare, you're just like the people who tried to get Trump crowd, and it's going to backfire, and it's going to wind up benefiting Tuberville. So that's my thought on it. Dale, you weigh in. What do you think?
Okay, so when Trump was going through all this stuff, who was his biggest defender? Tommy Tuberville.
Yeah.
So when all of this goes down, there's going to be a guy at 600 Pennsylvania Avenue. They're going after the coach.
Yep.
He's the best coach. No
Yep.
one's been a better coach. And now they're going to get him. It's fake news, and it's going to never stop. He's only going to help him.
Yeah. I mean, this is where you get back to George Wallace used to always say, as long as they spell your name right, doesn't matter what they say, it's still good PR.
Hey, did he say anything else you want to talk
about? All right, Jeff. So then pray tell, why did you ask the question? What do you think about it?
Well, and I think there may be more on this. However, I think there are
Jeff
people
sandbagging a story, Dale. You hear that, right? Jeff sandbagging a story.
No. Well, just let me tell you what I hear, and you won't be sandbagged anymore. There are people in this state, in probably the direction of if you head south on Interstate 59, you'll go in that general vicinity, that would like for Tuberville to qualify for governor, run for governor, and then give up his Senate seat, have someone else run for that, and then have the court, I guess, rule him ineligible and not be eligible for anything. I was talking to one former high-ranked election official today about that. He thinks that they do try some shenanigans like that Tommy Tuberville will become the second write-in candidate for U.S. Senate since Strom Thurmond. If they try to freeze him out, he's that popular. But no, the other problem is if this goes to the Alabama Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court in any way ruled against Tuberville, they probably lose their next election if they run as incumbents, is what he thinks. So I'm kind of back where I was earlier. Now I'm thinking, well, yeah, in practice, trying to disqualify Tommy Tuberville would be a political mistake.
Can I ask a question about this?
Yeah, go ahead. We got about a minute.
Are you talking about the Marshall County boys? And is this the suggestion that one of those Marshall County boys could be governor and the other could be senator? And if they take out Tuberville, is that the implication here?
No, not at all. It's just that you don't have to deal with Tuberville in the U.S. Senate anymore, and because the states, they want another Richard Shelby, right? They want another person who goes to the trough and brings it home. They don't want the ideological player in Washington, and I guess that's sort of Katie Britt's role. But what if you had two Richard Shelbys now? How great would that be? And there's people in the state that think that way.
There's always people in the state that think that way. I do think this, though, too. I think Tuberville is a very populist candidate. And I know that there are some who don't want a populist, but right now, populist is also exactly what it sounds like. It's popular. So it's still Tuberville's race to lose, and I think that somebody who tries to make these claims better have their head on straight and have the receipts in hand. Otherwise, it's going to backfire hard. That's my thought on it. All right, that's it. Round one, the Grand Council with Jeff Poore, Dale Jackson, and just little old me. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades in here. Hey, by the way, I got to remind you guys, Grand Council's brought to you every single week by DeKalb MD. That's DeKalb MD, Healthcare Simplified. And I'll tell you more about them in just a few minutes. All right, going back to the Grand Council with Jeff Poore and Dale Jackson. All right, fellas, second round, first question's me. All right, a lot of folks don't realize in Alabama we have one of the only in the nation charter schools geared towards one demographic. Like, how'd this even happen? LGBTQ, the friendly school is called Magic City Acceptance Academy. I asked this question a few weeks ago. I'm asking it again. Is it going to survive? Is it time for the Magic City Acceptance Academy to go, or do we just need to have a gay school because that's very important to have? Dale, you first.
Yeah, I think it's on its way out. I think it's pretty clear that the lawmakers aren't too happy with it. That they've passed a bunch of laws about divisive concepts and all sorts of stuff. Maybe it doesn't apply directly, or maybe it does. You have the school saying, no, we're following the rules now. No, don't worry about our principal giving mastectomy money to people. Don't worry about the furries. Don't worry about the drag queens. We're totally on board now. Everything is straight, so to speak.
Straight.
And I don't think that works.
I don't think it does either. But I'll tell you what, Jeff's been down the State House more than you and I have lately. Jeff, what are you hearing, man? Magic City Acceptance Academy, is it on the way out or what?
I think it's on the way out, at least from a state funding perspective. There's been some question, though, if the state acts and does that, could the MCAA raise its own money and exist, without state money at least? Maybe they get some kind of government money from the feds or from some kind of local sources. You mean like
sources. Go totally private, like become a private school?
Well, no, just absent of state money. I mean, it could still get federal money, I suppose. I don't know.
I doubt it.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like Hillsdale or anything like that. But that's the question, and that's what I've heard. I mean, they may try that, but I don't think they could raise that much money.
Well, I mean, I'll wrap it up with this, but I really think that it's, first of all, it's inexcusable that they got the charter in the first place, because they had to basically say, we want to be an accepting school for gay kids, and that's why we're setting. It's not even about education. It's about lifestyle choices and demographics. That's all it is. And there's nowhere else in the world that I know of you're allowed to set that. Well, nowhere else in the U.S. you're allowed to set that up. So I really am bumfuzzled by the fact that this even exists to this day. But we'll see. All right. Next question was what? Dale, what you got?
Okay, so you have a bunch of different states trying to do different things. You have some talk in Tennessee about the sales tax on food. I guess that didn't really go anywhere because the governor didn't put it in his budget. You have in Alabama, you have lawmakers talking about doing away with the income tax ever so slowly, and trying to do that in the next quadrennium. So that's a fun thing to run on. Are they serious about that? Because Tennessee and Florida, they don't have income tax, and Mississippi's trying to do away with it as well. Is Alabama heading down that path?
No, they're not going to do it. They're too addicted to it. They won't. I mean, the very idea that they passed a tax package that, in essence, also did away with one of the best tax cuts they've had recently, which was the overtime tax, and is tracking right now towards doing away with that overall if it passes the Senate. I look at this and think, you guys aren't serious about this. That's a talking point for the campaign season, and it has no chance of ever getting passed, despite the fact that the Mississippi House just passed something to do away with their state income tax, and Florida has none. I don't see Alabama ever really getting there. I don't think they have this political will for it. Jeff?
Yeah, and this, guys, it's how would they do it? Because they'd have to fund the government somehow, and there's two problems. I mean, the segregated budgets, right? Yep. The general fund and the education trust fund they'd have to figure out how to combine those two budgets, and then they would have to figure out, I would guess they would have to fund it through property taxes. We have very, very low property taxes in Alabama, and that's the income tax to make up for that revenue. You'd have to raise property taxes, and you'd have to figure out how to intermingle, because the way the funding's set up, that income tax and the general fund and the property tax, the ETF, or whatever it is, and you'd have to figure out how to make everybody whole. And it could be done, but those are two significant hurdles: joining the budgets to one and going up on property taxes in place of the income tax. I don't know.
I don't see it happening, and we're not going to become duty-free Alabama with no tax on anything. So, not that I'd love to see it, but I don't think they have the political will for it. Last question with less than a minute. What you got, Jeff?
Alabama Public Library Service making some moves, shutting down funding for Fairhope and firing Nancy Pack. How hot is the political water? And if it's not very hot, then do you anticipate more of the same coming?
I don't think it's too hot to keep doing more of the same. I think there's going to wind up being more of these libraries emboldened by the fact that this happened and that Nancy Pack is now gone. I don't think it's going to wind up being a problem with voters. I think it's going to be something that they can actually run on and say, we're cleaning up your home library. Real quick, Dale, you think on that?
Big L's for Read Freely, Alabama, a group of left-wing cranks without a single political victory, but boy, do the media love them. Keep promoting those losers, guys. Keep promoting.
All right. Appreciate both of you. Jeff Poore, FM Talk 106.5 and 1819 News. Dale Jackson, WVNN up yonder in Huntsville and Yellowhammer News. And just little old me, the Grand Council, every Wednesday at 4. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all want to talk about this show? Woo-hoo. Goes from Huntsville way on back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa way on back over to Gadsden. I mean, all the way down to that loveliest little town on the plains we like to call Auburn. Oh, by the way, stretching across the border to what is now renamed as Fort Benning. And yes, even big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. Hey, by the way, the Grand Council that we just did, we do it every Wednesday in the third hour. The Grand Council is brought to you by DeKalb MD. That's Healthcare Simplified. DeKalb, as in DeKalb County, DeKalb MD. Now listen, DeKalb MD, they're actually a direct primary care clinic with networks, like they're located in Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee. Got 2 locations in our Chattanooga listening area. So DeKalb MD is unique in all the world. Listen, it's called concierge medicine. How about this? You go to your doctor and you don't have to worry about your insurance. Why? Because you just join with a membership almost like you join a gym. $75 a month. You get quality, individualized care. You get same or next day scheduling with no wait times. You get longer visits with your provider. You get after hours access, no additional cost. You get a direct phone number to call or text your provider anytime. They'll even mail medications to your house. Y'all, this is crazy. This is cool. DeKalb MD, they work with you instead of your insurance. It's just a monthly membership fee. Go see your doctor whenever you need to. So DeKalb MD, it's primary care with you in mind. And like I said, 2 locations in our Chattanooga listening area. Here's what I want you to do. Check them out. Here's their website, www.decabmd.com. That's decabmd.com. Check them out today and tell them you found out about it on Rightside Radio. I would appreciate that very much. All right, listen, I gotta jump on a couple things in the text lines so I can stay current with that. Jeff from Indiana checked in earlier. He said, let's face it, Phil, Democrats are all brain dead. Some have a heartbeat, some do not. Talking about voters who are dead that still vote. Yeah, crazy. That's like a womp, 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 but it's still good.
Yeah. It's sad. It's funny because it's true.
Yeah, funny not, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
Lonnie from Huntsville said, so am I required to have a star ID to fly, but it's a problem to require one to vote? Apparently, Lonnie. You're also required to have that same ID for any number of things. If you want to travel, you want to get a passport, you want to, get on a plane, you want to take a cruise, you're going to have to show some of this. Listen, to take a cruise at a time when I did not have a valid passport. I came back from overseas. My passport was militarily overseas. Came back, and my family, we were going to take a family vacation together because I was home finally, and realized my passport had expired while I was gone, but they still allowed me to use a birth certificate. Okay, but think about it. To get on a cruise, I had to have proof of citizenship. What? Yes. And now we're going to say that voting, you shouldn't have to do that? Come on. Bill from North Alabama says Biden let in the illegals so they would vote. Well, there you have it. Steve from Huntsville says, Colonel, why is the real ID a pain in your opinion? I have mine. It wasn't difficult. No disrespect intended, only curious. Steve, I think it's a layer. I mean, it's granted, I'm not saying I'm not going to do it, but I have had many, many people tell me that the offices in which they had to go do it were understaffed, and also did not put out the information correctly as to what they had to bring. And more than one person waited in line only to get up there and then find out they weren't going to be able to get it. And they had to go back and get like a power bill or something else and come back and wait in line again. And these offices are only open during work hours, so they had to take time off work to get it. So there are aspects of this that are irritating. However, it's going to wind up being the thing. And if it means election integrity, I'm for it. Nick from Harvest says, you know what's worse than a scam text for outstanding tolls? Having outstanding tolls and getting scam text about outstanding tolls. That's a good point. Careful where you drive. There was a road. I mean, we had a problem up in Virginia when my son was stationed up there. We would go see him, and there's a road you came out of the airport on, and you didn't know it until you were on it that you were on a toll road, no way to turn around and go back. And then the toll. I mean, like you got on the road, no exit ramp, and then they showed you the toll booth.
After you've been on the road and.
Yeah, and the first time I did it, we're just cruising along. I drove right through that thing. Zaboo! And it's an unmanned toll gate. You're supposed to, and I was like, holy cow, they're going to come swooping down on me. So I was doing everything I could to try to figure out how to pay the toll without getting a ticket. But anyway.
There aren't any toll roads in Alabama anywhere, right?
Down yonder by Orange Beach.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering, so y'all were talking about the fantasy land of Alabama ever getting rid of the state income tax. If that were to happen, do you think there would be toll roads like everywhere in Alabama after that?
Let's hope not.
Yeah.
We had a big hairy deal. You've been down to Mobile, the Eastern Shore. You go back and forth between Fairhope or Daphne and Mobile, and you got to go across the Bayway. And there was a big hairy deal about building, and the Bayway is getting really crowded because Eastern Shore is really grown up. And so they had a time a while back where it's okay, we're going to build you a brand new toll bridge, except people who lived in Fairhope and worked in Mobile would have had to pay $150 a month just to drive to work.
Yeah.
And that's nuts. That went down in flames, by the way.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, they were being, they weren't sneaky because they aired it out, but they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, no doubt. John from Huntsville checking in. He says, hey, JP, speaking of phone scams, I got one recently. It was in my spam Gmail folder titled Internet Crime Scene Center, and it said I was a victim of an internet fraud scheme. Perpetrators have been arrested in an African country, will spend the next 10 years in prison. And then it said, I've been rewarded $10.5 million in restitution. All I had to do was send them $165 to get my $10.5 million. Please tell me you didn't do it, John.
And he's asking me if I thought it was a scam. I don't know.
The Nigerian prince wants you to know.
That's what my great-grandfather before he died was a victim to a couple of Nigerian brands. Not bad, but, my mom and aunts had to be like, Grandpa, these aren't real.
What's really scary too is what they've started doing with AI. Yeah. They have AI generated voices that will call and sound just like one of your family members. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest scams is to find, like, they'll go on your social media and they'll see grandma laughing at the birthday party with 16-year-old grandson. And then they'll take the voice, generate a new voice that sounds just like the grandson, and they'll call the grandmother and say, Grandma, I'm in jail. Yep. They said I got to have bail. I can't find Mom and Dad. They're not home. Can you please give me your credit card number so I can get out of jail tonight? Grandma, you got to help me. And more than one has fallen prey to that.
I bet. I mean, if I would too. If I was in a situation I didn't know that was possible, like scary stuff.
It's really messed up. And what's also messed up is the lengths to which these scammers will go.
Yeah.
The level of creativity and work they put into scamming, if they had a real job, they'd be rich. Well, they're probably rich as scammers too. Junebug from Hartselle again says, no more tolls at the beach in Alabama. Oh, okay. You know what? Apparently I haven't been to the beach in a while.
As of May 23rd, 2024, it says.
There you go. Oh, that's right. I forgot about the whole new construction thing and all that. That's right. Thank you, Junebug. Appreciate you. Ross from Huntsville. Phil, I get roadside spam from all the vagrants Tommy Battle refuses to get off the streets. Roadside spam? What does that mean? Roadside spam.
Oh, this is the same guy. If you look at his other text, he's been complaining about homeless folks in Huntsville, so it's probably along that same thread.
Okay. Roadside spam.
That's what he's saying, yeah.
Okay.
As in, yeah.
Well, it's only spam or scams if they're faking you.
Yeah.
It's not if they're looking you in the eye saying, hey, buddy, can you spare a dime?
I think all of this guy's texts have just been complaining about homeless folks in Huntsville.
Yeah, Ross, you got to find the new mantra, dude. I tell you what, find a different way to drive to work. How about that? And, oh, by the way, it's going to get fixed, I'm pretty sure. David from Bucky says, Phil, from one of those calls, said something about, I think he's saying I got one of those calls. Told the person calling to deduct the fee from my share. Needless to say, he said he dialed the wrong number and hung up. I used to get those things too during campaign season, the polls, and they have these things called push polls. Have I told you about this?
I don't think so.
Push polls. Push polls are where they call and they'll ask you a question. And depending on how you answer, they'll go, yeah, but don't you understand? And they're trying to push you towards revising your answer, and then they'll count that as what they wanted in the poll. And so when I was running for office, they were doing push polls on me, and they called me. So I get one time. And my wife and I, we sacrificed greatly to send our kids to, like you went to Westminster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my kids went to Westbrook, which is here locally. And so I got a phone call. Yes, sir. In the race, between Phil Williams and, in this case, I was running against a guy named Larry Means. And Larry Means, who do you intend to vote for? Oh, and I was like, this is easy. Phil Williams. And they said, oh, but don't you know? Phil Williams sends his kids to private school so they can avoid hanging out with common folk. And
no way they actually said that.
They said exactly what they said. And I said, really? Wow, tell me more. And they said, oh, yes. And they went on to talk about what a bad guy I was and said, does that change your opinion? I said, well, since I'm Phil Williams, no, it doesn't. And there was quiet on the other end of the line. And I said, I want to talk to your supervisor. And to my deepest surprise, he goes, okay. And next thing I know, I get a guy on the phone goes, hello? I said, are you the supervisor? Yes. I said, where are you located? He said, Michigan. I said, so you're in Michigan. Well, just so you know, you're doing a push poll on Phil Williams. Well, sir, I said, I'm Phil Williams. Oh. That's all he goes, oh. And I said, this is false and misleading, and you know it. And that's when we kind of got off the phone.
So they weren't sorry they were doing it. They were sorry they got caught.
They were sorry they got caught, but they were still getting paid.
Yeah.
They're telling what somebody paid for that crap. Phil Williams sends his kids to private school to avoid hanging out with common folk.
That's a personal one of like that annoys me. Obviously I know it happens, but like stuff like that annoys me. Like shouldn't be airing out that I take my kids to private school.
It got worse. I mean, listen, I can tell you stories. I know one guy who his opposition sent strippers to his front door to say, we got a flat tire in front of your house, so they could take pictures of the strippers at his front door. I mean, it just on and on and on. Oh, my gosh. Okay, Lisa from Huntsville says, I started getting the grandma calls before I was a grandma. I would mess with them for a while, tell them to get a job, pay their own hospital bills, and hang up. But the last call I got told the person to get their life right with Jesus and get an honest job. It's been a while since I got more of those calls. Lisa, epic. In fact, give her some applause. I think that one wins so far. She's winning the text lines. Outstanding, Lisa. Get her done. Last one for the break. Scott from Somerville says, these post-bond scammers would be terribly disappointed if they called me. My daughter was arrested once, and when she called, I told her I didn't get her put in jail, so I wasn't going to pay to get her out. She sat there until her trial. It was a drug charge. She got her life together since then, by the way. Wow, Scott, tough love, man, but I'm glad to hear she's doing better, and good on you. All right, we're taking a break. Last break of the day. Hump day. Y'all are halfway to the weekend. It's about go home time. Get your keys ready. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. All right, I'm going to the phones here in just a minute. Let me get a couple of text messages real quick. JT Lacey Springs says, last year a scammer called. I managed to keep him on the line for several minutes, getting details on the Mercedes that I won. Then 2 questions later, when called out, I was told to commit an illicit act on myself. No calls followed for about 4 months. Kenan from Huntsville says, if we allocated all road funding based on where gas is burned, we could eliminate tolls and a whole lot of politics. Wow. Look, the politics of asphalt, man. I'm telling you right now, asphalt's got a lot of politics. Roy from Hartsville says, there's more toll roads in Alabama. There's the Montgomery Expressway Bridge, Tuscaloosa Bypass, Emerald Mountain Expressway. Don't get caught without change. True. I've forgotten about those. Obviously, I don't use them. This one cracked me up. Fritzy from Huntsville. Fritzy says, Colonel, I feel like I got scammed by 92.5 today because I had to hear Dale Jackson's scratchy voice on his show, Yaffe Show, and yours. Fritzy. All right, let me go to the phones real quick. Michael from Huntsville. Hey, Michael, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
I'm good, sir. What's on your mind?
I got a good response for a scam caller.
All right.
You give them some name and you tell them that you're with the FBI and you're investigating a murder, and now that they've called and their number's on the ID, then they're a suspect.
Have you ever tried that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, does it work? What kind of reaction do you get out of that?
Well, they hang up.
I'm sure they do. They probably hang up pretty quick, too, don't they?
Oh, yeah. The minute you say you've got their number on the ID.
Oh, that's funny.
And we'll be calling back, getting in touch soon.
That's okay. So now everybody in our super wide listening area is taking notes and citing that Michael from Huntsville has the best answer to give to scammers when they call in. All right, Michael, appreciate you, man. Thanks for calling.
All right,
take care. Wow. Gary from Lester, Alabama says, God bless America. Thank you, Gary. We totally agree. And then John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says, Dale Jackson and Jeff Poore get a solid A for their equally solid performances. Brian Taylor gets an A+ for his amazing performance. Means today's co-winners with an A double plus are obviously Phil and JP. Congratulations. By the way, JP said I saw on the internet that Tiger Woods confirmed he's dating Donald Trump Jr.'s ex-wife, Vanessa.
Yep. He officially confirmed it.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's big news.
Hey.
Yeah, like, you know.
Is that sports news or is that social news? What is that?
It's both. It's sports and culture news, I guess, you know.
Wow.
So now we can't end the show without going over that, breaking news. Tiger Woods and Vanessa Trump.
I'm pretty sure I can do without it. I don't see an Dire Dipper coming up about Tiger Woods' dating life. Scott from Somerville says, Tom said, maybe did the FBI investigation gag to a spam caller. You can find it on, Tom Mabe, he says, did the FBI investigation gag to a spam caller, and you can find it on YouTube. We got to check that out. That might be worth finding the audio for. All right, listen, we got a couple minutes here. I'm going to tell you, so I had a whole dipper on tariff time, and I held it till tomorrow because literally moments ago, while I'm on the air, the screen comes up, and of course they didn't cover it on the CNN side that I saw, but the Fox side, Trump just signed a massive 25% tariff on all automobiles being imported to the United States. That's huge. Y'all would not believe the numbers in terms of dollar sign investment into the United States by industries that are A, seeking a more business-friendly environment, and B, are avoiding tariffs by manufacturing domestically. And I'll tell you more about it tomorrow, but right now we're looking at tariffs appear to be driving upwards of $3 trillion in committed investment by industrial technology and other platforms that are literally saying, you know what, it looks like it's a good time to be back in America. We like this. And so they're building here. One of them was a $5.8 billion Hyundai steel plant that's going to be built in Louisiana. They announced that yesterday. $3 trillion worth of investment just since Trump was elected. What does that tell you? Trump policies can be painful at times, but they promote growth long term, and that's where we are. Trump tariffs, we'll see how these go. Now, the tariffs are also, by the way, they're slightly modified. We're starting to find some carve-outs. Trump, in classic fashion, came out hard and then was able to back off slightly when he got some things he wanted. The art of the deal is certainly in play. But Trump tariffs are apparently going into effect today. I watched him sign the executive order. And so tomorrow we'll spend some time unpacking that. And wow, that should be interesting. What you got? About to say something?
No, but here comes the
You
music.
look like you had some intriguing thing on your mind that you wanted to say.
I concur with everything you said and then more. So
there you have it. You get a raise. All right. Listen, there's more of us than there are of them. God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.